Welcome, everybody. We are so grateful that you are out here with us tonight. My name is Elizabeth Overcash. I am the Director of Education here at the JCRA Arboretum, and we're excited to have this lecture tonight. Just to give you a heads up, there's another one in October. If you want to go to space with some plants, come back and register for that one. We'd love to have you back in October. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce you to Mark Weathington, our director, who loves traveling, and we can't keep him here sometimes, but he went to Japan twice last year and then once this year. And so he is gonna share some of those stories and exciting adventures that he took while he was in Japan. So thanks for being here.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, it was 3 trips in just about 12, 14 months. One of them with Elizabeth. I don't have pictures from that except for one picture that just about 10 minutes before I came in here, I was looking through my stuff and I was trying to figure out where one of the pictures was from, and I realized that it was not from the garden trip with the Arboretum. It was from the trip with Elizabeth. So yeah, we did this wonderful Arboretum trip. Japan has been one of the most asked for trips for years, and I have avoided it like the plague because I love Japan, but it can be, people either seem to love it or not so much. It can be a lot for a lot of people, and it's can be difficult for Americans sometimes. We were on a train. I insisted, I was like, if we're going to do this, we're doing the bullet trains between cities that we're going to, and the trains are quiet places. And American quiet and Japanese quiet are not the same thing. So I was feeling like a librarian. But then the previous year, I had gone to do a nursery buying trip, which when I went back and looked at the last time it had been with Greg, I believe, in 2014 was when I had been there doing nursery buying prior to that. So you may have noticed when you signed up for this, it was Japan's Gardens and Plants, the yin and yang of horticulture. Blake, who has spent time in Japan, pointed out that that's really a Chinese concept, which did get imported into Japan, like many of the plants and many of the gardening traditions. But the meaning is a little bit different. So mostly for Blake, I changed it to the Annyodo of horticulture, which is what they call yin and yang in Japan. So.
Arigato gozaimasu.
So. We'll start. I've been to Japan, I don't know, 12+ times. I have never visited the gardens of Japan. I go there to collect plants in the wild or to buy plants in nurseries. And so I don't go to Japanese gardens much. And I always appreciated them, but I don't know. I didn't know a whole lot about them. But I love the way they think about horticulture there. This is our hotel where we were staying. This is the view out my window at my hotel or at our first night. And it was amazing. It was one of the best gardens we went to, and we had to wander around there. I don't have any pictures of the rose garden that you got to from the 3rd or 4th floor to go out and look at it. There were green roofs and another view over there. Just amazing. And they really do appreciate plants. Both as a whole, but also individually. They really, they'll have a garden like this and they'll have a specimen that just gets, almost daily care. And almost every house, whether it's in city or if it's an individual house, it'll have either a little planting space or it'll have a few pots out in front of it. Some of it will look just like what you would think in Japan. And then there'll be one with, 5 different colors of zinnias in a pot, which is not what you think of when you think of Japan. But we went to two of the three great gardens of Japan, which is not bad in a little over a week and a half, and a lot of other places. And this is really kind of considered kind of the granddaddy of Japanese gardens in a lot of ways. It was built in the 1700s, and it's kind of got an interesting history in that I've got a picture of, there's a castle there, and this is where the local lords, the daimyo, had his residence. And over the centuries, there was a lot of visiting whatever, other daimyos, important people, politicians, all throughout there. And so there were a lot of paintings done of all these important people through all these centuries. And so this is a garden where they really know what it looked like in the early days. They know where it kind of changed. And where it is now is very similar to the beginning, but really the mid 1800s is kind of where it really lays now. And one of the things often you hear called like a mountain and garden or hill and garden, mountain and ocean or hill and ocean kind of Japanese garden really comes from this concept where you've got a high point. Sometimes you can get on it like this one. Sometimes it's, in the corner of the garden if it isn't so big. And that's the mountain. And then you have these shrubs that are pruned into these perfect little shapes. And those are the hills. And then it comes down to water or something representing water. It might be a stone or something like that. And that's kind of traditional. There's the castle. And this is a strolling garden. Let's see, did I put in there? Yeah, so the name comes from Senyu Koraku, the Koraku Inn, which means like grieve before others or grieve earlier than others and enjoy later than others. So kind of a thing. So kind of an interesting concept. But these gardens are meant for strolling, and something that when I was talking to somebody, they said, did they just have time to come out and just walk all the time? I was like, well, one, the people who lived there were rich, and there were other people who were doing the work out there. But yeah, they also didn't have radios, TVs, smartphones. I mean, the hell else are you going to do except for walk around, drink tea, that kind of thing. Do elaborate tea ceremonies to take up a little bit more time. But the gardens are beautiful, and often with these larger gardens or even smaller gardens, you'll see they have little islands in there in the water if they have water, and or in the these gravel type gardens, you'll have some stones in there or little patches of garden. When I say garden, I mean plants of the garden. And there's another thing somebody asked me about why they love islands so much. I'm like, well, Japan's like 100 islands. It is mountain down to sea, and then sea and islands. So that's really, especially when they started doing this is much of what they knew. The only other real thing they knew is China and Korea from when they went over there and interacted with people there. We'll leave it at that. So they love these little islands, and they're all great. I don't know how they always keep the water so clear, but it is generally moving water. That's neat. I think on this little island, as you walked around, there was a worker who was taking his break. It was just laying underneath one of these trees. Did not get a good picture of him. But really, starting off there, it's a pretty hard one to beat. But we did visit another of the three great gardens in Japan, and that's Kenroku-en. En is garden or nursery. So like when I go, the next one, if I were to put the names of the places, you go to Kobayashi Momiji-en, which is Momiji is maple, so that's Kobayashi's maple nursery, or Ishiguro Momiji-en, or anything like that. So this one started in the 1600s, but it's a little less well-known, the history. There was a big fire in the 1750s or so that wiped out a whole lot of the garden. But it's very cool in that all of the water, and there are big waterfalls here that I didn't get good pictures of, and there's actually a fountain that sprays water up, which is not a Japanese garden thing, but this is, it is an old feature from this, but it's all done with water pressure. So if you've ever been to like Versailles, where all those fountains are all water pressure, they're not big pumps. It was kind of neat to see that there. So the water comes in from the top, and the garden is kind of built around an old canal water pathway through there. It's the Kenroku-en that roughly translates to garden of 6 attributes. And it's, I'll get you those attributes, but it has some real features that people come to see, like this Karasaki pine. It's this ancient pine, and they've got it, they grow it so it can't stand up by itself, and then they prop it up. But this was up high. They get snow here, and so there were a lot of trees that were cabled, really high up and cantilevered and all kinds of stuff that you keep snow from damaging them. But it was like the engineering around some of these trees was incredible. And while you're looking at the beauty of this tree and they're mimicking nature, that kind of artifice is part of it as well. That's something that's appreciated as much as the plant. Those aren't there with the idea that they'll ever come out or anything like that. It's really just, it's part of the whole process. So the 6 attributes comes from a book, The Chronicles of the Famous Luoyang Gardens. And the designer of this garden was using those 6 attributes, which are hard to do, they say, because they are opposite each other. So the things are, you want a sense of vastness, a sense of quietness and intimacy, which, hard to get vast and intimate. Artificial elements, but that takes away an impression of antiquity, which you want. And if you have a lot of flowing water, distant views are not possible. That one I feel like is a little bit, I think you can have flowing water and distant views, all right. But I guess if you're on the flat land, you need some hills for that. So this garden was designed to capture all 6 of those attributes and create that in one garden. And they do that pretty well. They'll proudly tell you, they told us there, they have 183 different types of plants. And when I told our guy that hey, we have about 9,000 different plants at our garden, she's like, oh, well, we have over, 12,000 plants here. I was like, no, but we have over 9,000 different types of plants. But interesting, this was one of the few gardens where I actually saw what we would consider Japanese maple cultivars, like purple leaf ones. That's not, you don't see that much in Japanese gardens. This is, other than the pine, this is another one of the main features. This is the Gankobashi Bridge. I only put all this information on here for y'all's benefit. It has nothing to do with me needing to remember it. But this is called the flying geese bridge, because it's supposed to evoke the feeling of flying geese. And those are, if you are into rocks and building with rocks, if you look at this close, it is cool how they've built all this together. And that is stone. Those aren't concrete slabs that are fitted together. And you can see how old they are. It's kind of narrow right there in the middle. From people walking on it and from water sitting on it when it rains. The guy is just such a beautiful garden.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. I don't think I have ever seen a more beautiful garden. Here's a pro tip. If you ever travel with me, my wife often travels with me. Any day that she decides she is not going with the group, because she gets very tired of plants, she gets a little tired of plant people, mostly me, and she'll often take a day off if we're not traveling, if we're going back to the hotel later. Pay attention, because if she doesn't go, we will go see one of the best things on any trip. And I could name several trips where we've done that. And she's always perfectly fine. She's like, I sat around and read a book by a pool, so I'm good. This is a Adachi Museum of Art. And this is this was one of those places where it was difficult to take in what you were seeing. So this is a museum of mostly contemporary Japanese art. The gardens, you don't walk through the gardens. The gardens were designed to view as pieces of art. This is actually taken through a big window where there's a bench there to sit. And this is not my photo, by the way. I took the photo off of the internet because I didn't want to take a photo because everybody was there taking pictures. And I was like, I finally got to the age where I'm like, sometimes I just want to appreciate things. I don't need to see it through my camera. But there's not a pine needle on the ground. There was not anything. I've never seen something so perfectly manicured in my life. There was also a little sign inside that had a thing saying, apologizing if you happen to see somebody outside doing maintenance, that they apologize for that. But we had these series of, this was kind of a larger garden. It went farther and you saw different bits as you walked through this museum. And there were parts where you would go outside, and there were some other types of Japanese gardens that you would see. But not really interpreted like, here's a garden and here but really just as works of art that you saw. Yeah.
Is that a waterfall?
Yes, thank you. I was going to mention that and I almost forgot. So way in the background, there's a waterfall. I don't know if that's on the museum's property or not. I got the feeling that it's not part of the garden, but it's an existing feature. It's a real waterfall. You couldn't get a picture of it, or at least I couldn't. But there is, as you go around this way, there are some smaller waterfalls on this property. But the way the land is, the way it's set out, it looks like it's this waterfall in a river coming down and continuing down over the hills. And this water in the bottom corner over here is a continuation of that, at least visually. That's how it's.
It also looks like, if that is their property, it looks like they've managed the tops of the trees, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, they may very well be pruning those trees back there. I would not put it past this place. It was incredible. It really was. It's the kind of thing that's, it's like me with other art, that I like art and I look at it, but every once in a while there are things that just, move you almost to tears. And that's how this was. I could have sat there for hours in front of just this view. This is not the Adachi Museum of Art. I couldn't figure out where it was. And I was like, and I was looking, I could see the little gallery over there, and I knew there was art in there because I could picture it. That's actually when I was, when Elizabeth and I were there for a symposium, and we visited. It's another art museum down towards Matsue, a little bit farther south, but I finally figured it out because it was raining on there. And I figured out it wasn't Adachi because there were leaves on these things. And that didn't happen in Adachi. But, everywhere there are these little touches, and they're things that I would think of as like whimsy in a garden that you don't necessarily think of for Japanese gardens, but these little figures that are, being swallowed by moss. There was one places with little statues with birds on their heads and things like that. They're just a lot of interesting stuff. And you can do artifice and antiquity. Those I think they've got down pat in most of the gardens. If you've got moss, you can make something look pretty ancient pretty quickly if you want. I'm fascinated by this. You probably can't tell from where y'all are, but this is wood. It's wood. And like the sides are like pretty thin plywood type thing. And so I don't know how they got to replace that at some point. But it sure doesn't look like they ever had. It looks like it's been there forever. And if you really want antiquity, this is at that first garden, I believe. We were told that the daimyo liked that rock so much when he saw it somewhere else, that he wanted it in his garden. And so they took it apart and put it back together on his property. So that is, this, by the way, is a magnificent Ilex purpurea, entire leaf holly, no spines on it. It was in flower, it's beautiful. Oh, it was amazing. And I don't know how they get up in there and prune that, but they obviously do, because that's not what that tree does normally. But everywhere you went, it didn't matter. This was a little restaurant we went to, and we walked through this little kind of courtyard. They weren't using that for seating. It wasn't to publicize the place, because you had to go into, behind a wall and through a gate to get up in there. And, but it was just there. This is just outside somebody's home. Or maybe businesses out on the street. And here, just, all these little spots that just where there was a few extra feet, they would do that. There's a young man and his new wife who came and visited here, stayed with several people. And that's part of what he started with his nursery, was doing these little tiny installations. He also does great big installations with great big trees. I don't know if he does these tiny ones anymore.
Well, they have this idea of tiny rooms.
Yeah, the little rooms. But, all over this, just in this little town. And you can see how old this is, it's got steps here, so you can get in and out when you were actually using that as a waterway and not as a way to separate tourists from their yen. I give kind of I'm a plant guy, so I sometimes give the Japanese gardens a little bit of a hard time. I'm like, there's no plants in them. There's, azaleas and pines, maybe a maple and some bamboo. But, you would see these magnificent things like these Japanese iris that are flowering, or at one of the gardens, me and a small group of intrepid folks went away from the manicured areas and did the kind of outside edge where there were some other interesting things growing. This is a Litsia coreana, incredible plant. At the University of Tokyo's Botanic Garden, Koishikawa Botanic Garden, there is one that probably it would take four of us to put a whole row of them that take four of us to get our arms around. But it's got some of the best bark of any plant ever. Of course, some don't have any plants at all. They were very excited. We were with somebody who literally, when I was pulling some of that information about the other gardens, the great gardens of Japan, off of Wikipedia, because all that isn't in my head. The reference was Stephen Maberly, who joined us at several of these gardens to talk about these gardens. They were very excited that we were going to this. This was on the roof of the Canadian Embassy, and they did. I don't have a lot of pictures of it because I don't take pictures of rocks with nothing around them. But they were very proud of this. It was very interesting. But I have to admit, what I found the most interesting part, there was a lot of symbolism there. It was later in the afternoon, and I didn't hear all the symbolism, or at least it did not settle too deeply inside, so I can't repeat it. But what I do remember is, you see here, this is that same rock. See here? This is on the roof of a place. So they cut these rocks and hollowed them out, put them back together, or some of them I think they hollowed out from the bottom side and put a top on. But hey, do what you got to do, I guess. Greg, what do you think? On the rooftop, great big huge boulders. We'll empty them out. We'll put Evan on it. He'd love to cut a rock in half. Now, I say my wife always misses the gardens. I usually don't. I'm the host. I go to them all. We had an interesting trip. We went to 3 different medical facilities with guests, including my mother, who broke an arm while she was there. It's okay. It was near the end of the trip, so it wasn't a big deal. But I didn't go to the garden. And the next day we had a free day, and my wife said, "You need to go to this garden. You will really like this garden." I was like, it's like 40 some minutes away, and I don't know. And so I said, "Okay, yeah, I'll go," because my wife was saying, "You should go to this garden with me." I mean, that is pretty rare too. So we went, and it's this old temple. It's actually a series of temples with these gardens around it. And let me tell you, this is more my style. This was just lush with plants. You know, they have the well-maintained thing, but I love that look of the real control and then the exuberance around it. It was amazing. And everywhere you look, there'd be these old walls, and it'd be, these acerums. No, acerums. Yeah, and they're just seeded in there. Maybe asporoides, and just everywhere you look. And then it was by this little stream, and we walked down to get to where our car was, where we'd meet our car, but we also walked up to get there. If you ever meet my wife, ask her about our walk through here. She has a funny story about our driver in it. He's very concerned for our safety. But yeah, we walked up the hill, and you just see these little sites, and the way everything seems to blend in nature there is really beautiful. But I've got to the point where I love looking at the hardscapes. Yeah, isn't that great? It's just gravel and slabs of granite. That wouldn't be hard. That'd be easier than doing a paver thing if you could move those big old things. And simplicity. I loved this in the garden. This is, they know they got to block this path off sometimes. So they have posts in the ground, and then they just put a piece of bamboo over the top with a little size there and cut a nice new piece of bamboo and throw it on there, and it looks so natural and nice. It's so nice, I took a picture of it. And the saying, if you have a hammer, everything's a nail. If you have bamboo, everything's solved with bamboo. This is on that Canadian embassy rooftop. This was hiding something, I don't know, ductwork, wiring, something. And it's just this bamboo that's been nailed over. Of course, if you look at it, it is all really perfect. So it's plastic bamboo, which I love. I did see, and I would love to get these. They're very specific knots you tie in Japanese fencing with this black twine. We saw a little bamboo, it was real bamboo fence, but all the ties were so perfect, which is not that unusual, but it was in front of somebody's house. They were all little plastic things that you screwed, they went on either side. They looked like the crossed wires are plastic, and you screw a little thing through there to put them together, and it would hold the bamboo like that. I was like, oh man, I need to get some of those. You could do some fun stuff. And I always, I'm a sucker for a gabion wall. I love it. How cool is that? How cool is that? Elizabeth was with me for that. At night, they had lights in there. This is just like a little bar restaurant right there. It was so cool. Look at that slag. John, how many trips to get slag would it take to do something like that? Or this, look at these benches. How simple. These are like gabion cages. This one, it's like 4x4s, or probably 10 by 10 centimeter things that are laid this way, all perfect. This is ones where they're laid that way so you can see the end grain. These are just logs done like that. All three benches were right next to each other, and it's so simple and so neat. I don't love the tops they did on them, but the rest of it, very, very cool. Decoration everywhere. We need to do more of this kind of thing. Like a little wisteria on your manhole cover. All right, if you've ever been in my office, you'll know that I have a thing for ceiling tiles. I find them in various places. I found this. This was new construction, and it was the biggest ceiling tile I've ever seen. I was so excited, except for in one place we went to in a town where they had a giant one. It was like this, the edge of the ceiling tiles. That's new construction, so that would be theft. But I have gotten good at finding them out in the wild, if you will. You go through the alleyways between people's houses, and they just have kind of trash heaps where they push, non-perishable stuff. You go in there, it'll just be piles of junk and debris. And that's fair game. So I did find one there. It was my first Japanese one. All my rest are China and Taiwan. Not a giant one, though. But when I was there with Elizabeth, one of the things we were wandering around from a garden, and we stumbled on this little, junk shop, antique store. I don't know what you'd call it. And I had never thought about when I'm traveling, going to one of these places. I don't like going to the places where you can buy tourist stuff. I like to find, stuff out in broken down temples in the woods or piles of debris behind people's houses. So we went in there. It was very cool. So when we had some free time in some of the cities, I looked for, they don't list them as junk stores, but antique stores, and you can find some cool things. This, yeah. Y'all know what this is? This is one of them, it's a dragon mask for putting on your thing. What's that?
Hold it up over your head, 'cause the light.
Hold it in the light.
Hold it in the light. There you go.
I see. So, it's for the parades. Went in the store, sitting up on a shelf, no price or anything. I was like, is that for sale? And the woman looked at me like I was crazy, and then got on her phone and called the owner, I guess, of the store, and got off and said, yeah, sure. So I don't remember what it was. It wasn't much, though. There was a bigger one that was a lot at another store. But it's a lot of fun. All right, we're going to shift gears now. Go to the nurseries. There's a little break between. What you can't hear is all of us laughing hysterically at this thing, and the music it's playing and thing. We were in the airport, and was it baby carriages or like just luggage carts, Elizabeth, that were returning by themselves? I can't remember what it was. It was like wheelchairs or baby carts or something. Like you could get them and roll to your gate, and then when you were done, they went back to wherever their charging station was by themselves. And so, we were sitting there having something to eat, waiting for our plane, and all of a sudden you see something go by, like, what? And then another one goes by, and it's wild. So nurseries. Now, this is the yang to the yin or the yin to the yang. I'm not sure which one. And the nurseries in Japan are so different from anywhere else. They're almost all very small, very specialized. And, from the outside, they can look a little different. This is my new favorite. This is back alley hostas or something like that, back alley nursery. And it was brand new. It was built just behind this guy's house. It literally is in the back alley. You get places that aren't so stark, have little gardens around them. That's kind of unusual because a lot of these nurserymen, they grow the plants. It's not the gardens. A lot of these specialty nurseries is about individual kind of plants. You get some that are a little bit, but they have cool plants in there. It's probably a good thing that we have to bare root them and clean them off and everything, because you'd probably be bringing in all kinds of weeds otherwise. And some are just as beautiful as any nursery here, but with more variety.
So you have special dispensation to them?
Yes. So let me get this out of the way at the beginning. There are permits you have to go through. There are inspections you have to get. These plants that we bought, we were left, we have permits from the U.S. They were left in Japan at a nursery for 3 weeks so that they could be certified clean. Then they're all washed. They get inspected there. They get shipped to the USDA and they get inspected there, and then they get sent to us. And there's a whole bunch of stuff we can't bring
They
back.
arrive alive.
More often than not, you'd be really surprised how often they arrive alive. And we were a little concerned about this one. And actually, one of the boxes that we got stuck somewhere for like an extra week and a half, 2 weeks. I mean, it was a long time in transit, and it came through mostly alive. A lot of specialty nurseries. This is a little orchid. This is a place that specialized in orchids. And I mean, look at that thing. Who cares about flowers, or these? Anybody know what this is? It's Harmonious bullata. Nobody even grows this thing in the garden. And look at that. Those things are amazing. Did not get any of those. And the woodland peonies, variegated woodland peonies. Those are nice. But, oh my, there are some great ones over there. And it's funny, we want something that's perfectly stable. In Japan, a lot of times they like things like this, or like this asarum, that I can look at that and say, that's not stable. That's going to throw up some green leaves before too long. It's not, but the controlling that, not letting it happen, having to care for it in a pot in your home is something that brings joy. Whereas I want one, like this, that I can look at and say, that's probably going to stay true for that. Oh. And I swore this time I was going to get, one or two of these really good ones, no matter the price. And I'll say when I go, I buy some things for the Arboretum. I buy some things for myself. Some of the stuff I buy for myself, I leave at the Arboretum with the hopes that we'll propagate it and then I'll be able to get it home. Some stuff I do bring home with the plan to propagate it and bring it in. Things like this, I don't buy for the Arboretum because I don't want to spend Arboretum money like that. But even going over steel to buy these things, I came home with none. They were so expensive. So expensive. I remember when like $600 for that was expensive 20 years ago. That wasn't $600 anymore. It's a whole lot more than that. It was enough that I couldn't even pretend the yen, which I cannot convert currency in my head. I couldn't even pretend that probably wasn't that much. At a certain point, when the zeros get too many, you get scary. When the zeros disappear, that's when it gets really scary with the prices. But they're great things. But people ask, well, why do Japanese have all these things? And part of it is they grow a ton of plants from seed. So they'll take a variegated plant, say, and they'll sow seed of it. So here's a nursery with all kinds of peonies. He's gone through and picked out the really good ones to put a really high price on. These other ones are lower priced, and they're, all kinds of different things. You could take it and it may turn out to be great. You could sow seed. These toad lilies, these are all seedlings from some variegated toad lily, and they sell them like that. And we don't tend to do that. We want a name on it, and we want to define it and know exactly what it is. And so that gives people heebie-jeebies, because if you take it home, how can you put a name on it? It's this, it's Triceratops hirta samurai. It's Triceratops hirta gilt edge. It's, and there it's just a nice plant that they have. They may call it they probably, if you push them to put a name, put something on there, they might say Ogon because it's gold. Or if it has a marginal variegation, they might call it Fukurin. Or white margin Ito Fukurin. But so, they grow these out by seed, just by the gajillions. And you get all kinds of different things. If you look in here, there are little leaves, big leaves, solid green, speckled. But, they're pretty similar. But, there's also this at the same nursery. I did get a white-edged one. Oh!
Now, can you buy them as seeds and bring them into the United States?
The question was, can you buy them as seeds and bring them into the U.S.? Still requires a permit.
Got it.
Requires a permit to bring them into the U.S., still has to go to the U.S. inspection station. The only difference is you don't have to get it inspected in Japan before it comes to the U.S., but it still goes through inspection, and there's still a lot of things you can't bring in. And it's a different, if you go that route, it's a different permit. So you have to have a second permit.
Growing this in,
What are they growing them in? They grow them in different media. They, a lot of it's a very, very loose. Sometimes it's like this clay aggregate stuff that's almost like growing in permatil, something like that. And we thought they were going to be difficult. They actually came through in great shape. The ones we brought back.
I can tell you that that's Akadama that they're growing it in, and you can buy that in America from bonsai aficionados, and you can spend a lot of money on something that's ostensibly turquoise, which is
Right.
a big line baseball field.
Yep. Akadama, is that what you called it? Seth?
Yeah, means red earth.
Aka, yeah, I should have got that. I wouldn't have known Dama, but Aka should know. Another one where I didn't ask the price. But they had they have these collections, and they look for different things. This place, his actual, he had all these things, but what excited him were, you see here and right there, how the lobes on those acerum kind of were curled around. That's what got him excited on there. So, and those, when you see them lined out like that, spaced nicely in their own little trays, you know that they are going to be expensive. Those are all individually priced. The trays with all kind of mixed, those have the same price. But some of those are pretty darn nice. I mean, those were kind of his throwaways. Did get those, but it's made. And so people ask me, I get this a lot. I got it on Facebook or Instagram when I post things. Why do you always get variegated plants? Well, why not one? Yeah. In England, they don't like variegated plants. But why, I show all these plants, and there'd be all these variegated plants. Like, why do you get variegated plants? And the truth is, it's all written in Japanese. So when I go through this nursery, I can tell you what most of the plants are in terms of what genus, maybe what species, depending on the plant. But a lot of them just look like green plants. Now, when it flowers, it may be, fluorescent purple and, glows under ultraviolet light and has quadruple the number of petals, but I can't tell that, and I can't read it on the label, so you tend to gravitate towards the things that are different, rather than buy something, take it home, and it be something that you're already growing. I do have a friend who says, always buy if you go to a nursery with all kinds of crazy stuff, find the solid green thing that looks like nothing, because when you get home, it's going to be the coolest thing. But, it's hard to do. It always seems like every year, every time I go, there's something something new that everybody's doing. And they had these Blatilla, the Japanese ground orchids, that were just crazy different in how the petal structure and everything was. So we bought several. Those take a different permit to bring in orchids. That's a whole other thing, because that's falls under the Convention for the International Trade of Endangered Species, all orchids. So you need a special permit for that. But, we got those in, no flowers on them. So we have about 6 different ones in the nursery. That's just leaves. We've had one flower. It was kind of this color, but it didn't have that kind of look to it. But really cool stuff. It seemed like everybody had those. And the other thing that some of the nurseries that were really into, it seemed like, were these hostas. But hard to tell, but that hosta leaf is like a 1/4 inch thick and corrugated and just stiff as can be. And they were very excited about that. This guy took us all through his nursery into the back 40 to show us that plant. He was proud of that plant. Just imagine if every plant you bought was in nice, really cool little clay pots like this.
Handwritten all the names.
Oh yeah. Google Translate has been a game changer. On phone, in real time, handwriting, holy cow, it's amazing. I did not get any of the variegated one, but I did get a little green one for myself. So hopefully it'll bulk up quickly. Has not been quick so far, but it's, I mean, you could jump up and down on that thing and it wouldn't bother it at all. But lots of cool stuff. Farfugiums, I look at this and I'm always afraid, is it just, chlorotic because it doesn't have fertilizer? But I know mangetsu means full moon, I think, something like that. It's often put on yellow plants. So it has been noticeably greener in our nursery so far. So we'll see. All these different polygonatums and disporums and everything. Look at those. Aren't those amazing? And weird stuff that I get for myself, like variegated cardiocrinums. Who wants that? Something to me. And I got seduced by saxifrages, Saxifrage fortunii and cortucifolium, knowing full well they are terrible plants for us. It's not like Saxifrage stolonifera that goes everywhere. That is still alive. That's at my garden and it's still alive. All these, because they hate our heat and humidity. But I did get seduced and I got a bunch of them. Took half the other ones home. They're all dead. Left half of them here. I think there's one or two of them alive maybe, but how cool. I got this one for the little tiny leaves. Look at those flowers. They're huge. That's in our nursery here. That one's dead. They did not like this summer. Let me tell you, plants that don't like heat and humidity did not like July. Urea, great evergreen shrub. Look at that gold. I drooled over this. It was this big, so I couldn't bring it back, but managed to find a little tiny one in the nursery, actually sitting over there on the table. This is a cool Daphne. We grow this. It goes completely summer dormant, drops every leaf in the summer, and then in the fall, leafs out, doesn't get affected by any cold, has yellow flowers, no fragrance, but cool thing. I saw this variegated one, and I was like, oh man, I'm really excited about it. And the nurseryman, he gets excited that I'm excited about it. So he brings me two more variegated ones. I'm like, oh cool, different ones. And then he brings me another one, and he said, it's orange flower. Normally has this gold yellow flower. And another one that's green flower and white flower and light yellow flower. And so I get them all. I mean, I love this plant. No commercial value, but man, that's a cool plant that drops all its leaves in summer. They flowered in the nursery, and sometimes under plastic, colors can be off. They were all yellow as far as the variegated ones are different. But you can watch in the lath house with me because most of them are planted out there. Styrax. We've had that before and killed it. I did not bring it back again this time. Stewardias. We have a Stewardia, not variegated, in our stale. Stewardia pseudocamellia, one of the finest plants ever to be grown, and not widely enough grown. Helwingias, weird little things like that. Got a gold leaf one, a green leaf one, a variegated one, two variegated ones, a new variegated fatsia, completely different than anything in the U.S. We're going to corner the market. It'll be everywhere in 150 years when we can propagate 1,000 of them to sell. But I know Greg recognizes that. This is the great Gotemba nursery where they, the three brothers who are all either yelling at each other, four brothers, yeah, all either yelling at each other or cackling hysterically at each other, often three of them cackling hysterically and one of them yelling at the other three. But they trade. It's very fair because it's not the same one who's being heckled all the time. So much fun, so many great things. And, I could spend a week in any one of these places just looking around. And here's some of the stuff that came home with us. We see in a lot of these ferns and some other things. Things that nobody wants, like variegated chloranthus. Nobody even knows, or even better than, whoops, let me go back. even better than variegated chloranthus, one that has a double green leaf thing instead of flowers on there. Isn't that what you want? It's what I want. My beloved ardesias. Okay, now this is interesting. We found this platycodon balloon flower, right? Hard to see in here, but the leaves are twisted and stiff and dark green. The cultivar name is Uzu something or other. It means eddy, and then the other part of the name just means balloon flower. Uzukikyu or something like that. So ours flowered in the nursery and is beautiful white. Normally it's a blue flower. So I sent it to the folks who were with me. It was Leonard Foltz from Dancing Oaks Nursery and Dan Hinckley from Wincliffe Gardens. Sent them a picture because we all got this one. We don't all get the same things, but we all got this. So a week later, Leonard sent me a picture of his. And you can see it's the same weird foliage. It's the normal blue flower. And then Dan sends a picture of his. Are you kidding me? I hate him. But you see all these cool things when you're there. You see fun things. There's orchids just growing on a moss-covered rock that's sitting in a pan of water that's just kind of seeping that up. Isn't that amazing? And I got so inspired by these little dishes where they just had like little hostas in them, or this one with Hakanakloa in there. I took some big saucers, like the big plastic saucers, and I piled a bunch of stone in the middle, covered it with permatil and soil mix, and planted in that. So there are little mounds like that, just in shallow saucers. Didn't drill any holes in there. So the bottom will fill up with water. I'm hoping things will root down in there. So I got one with ardesias, and one with ferns, and one with an asarum. Stay tuned. I'll let you know this time next year if it's made it through the winter and summer. But there are always those things that you look back at your photos. That's the hard part about putting together a talk like this. You look back at your photos and you're like, oh, this is a little hydrangea. That actually, from the Gotemba brothers, they were selling it all over. You can't bring hydrangeas back. Can't bring hydrangeas back. Oh, isn't that crazy? Looking good. This one, sometimes you can't bring them back because they won't sell them to you. I found this in a nursery. It was just there with all the nursery plants. I bring it back. It's Lindera triloba, one of my all-time favorite shrubs. It's so gorgeous, but it's just lightly variegated. It's got that chartreuse edge. And the owner, thought about it and thought about it and thought about it and thought about it and finally said, no. This was at Gotemba Nursery. We were in the good greenhouse. They don't let everybody in. And we're walking through, and they would sell some stuff. And I see these. These are Paris, variegated Paris. And my eyes lit up, and I looked at one of the guys, and he smiled and went, sometimes things don't make it. This is one that did not make the shipping. This is a Bomeria. If I had one of those leaves in my hand, I could throw it halfway back in this room. No joke. They were so thick and stiff, and it was gorgeous. And it was just growing kind of in the ground at somebody's place, like coming out of a pot that had broken out of. And so we got them to shovel off a big chunk of it for us and split it up. We all got centipedes. All of ours died. With this was actually at Koishikawa Botanic Garden. This is the kind of the Japanese evergreen oak, Quercus filioides. It's like the equivalent of our live oak. Forma crispa. I've never seen this. This thing so hard to get a picture of because the light was shining on it so much. Came back, asked everybody I knew who did things with oaks, have you ever heard of this? Have you ever seen this? Everybody said no. Oh, got to get that. Can't bring oaks in. My favorite hydrangea, I first saw it in Japan, Hydrangea hirta. It has no big, none of the big sterile florets on there. So it's like a cross between a mop head and a lace cap with only the parts that mostly people don't want. I think it's beautiful. But I saw this growing very near that. This could be a soil issue. I don't know. I won't tell you where it is because I'm got somebody that I'm sending up that way to go find this thing and see if it's actually a gold hydrangea herta. Oh. We did get out in the wild one day, one afternoon. We were with the driver, Shige, and we kept saying, well, we got some time this afternoon. We're in the mountains. Let's go and take a little hike or something. And he never wanted to. He never wanted us to. And he'd say, no, it's dangerous. They're bears. Like, are you just lazy? But we did stop, and at one point, once we got out and we were walking, and I'm seeing Trillium apetala. Never seen this before, and it's in flower. And we probably saw about 4 or 5 different variations of flower color, from the green to really dark purple, and everything in between. And the little waterways with skunk cabbage and all kinds of things growing up in there. We saw Japanese painted ferns in the wild. You want to talk about something that looks like a nursery plant growing wild, the burgundy and silver and everything out there. Oh, incredible. Roger, this is just wild. That's just what it looks like in the wild. It was incredible. And then we were leaving. He all of a sudden, he's like, we got to go. We started going too far up, and he's like, we got to go. We get back in the car and we're driving, and I spot this, what I think is this. This is like a holy grail plant. I've killed this plant the 2 times I've managed to get my hands on it. I'm like, wait, I think that was Acer niponicum. And Leonard and Dan got all excited, and so we get out, and it was Acer niponicum, which was awesome seeing that in the wild. And then we looked around, it was all over there. And so we start just walking along the side of the roads, which is where you find the best plants, because you get sunlight there, and you get a lot of diversity on the sides of roads. So we're walking and seeing all kinds of cool things. And one of the great things of when you're walking the road, you see like a little path going off. And it's one of 2 things. It's either there's really cool stuff up there, or somebody uses that area for a bathroom. We weren't in a farming area, so we didn't think that was going to be the case. But we start going up there because, and Shige's like, hey, we got to get in the car. And we go up there. And as we go up, we see this. And we're all laughing. We're like, don't tell Shige. And Shige's like yelling at us to come down. And then he points out this. That's not a small bear paw. So, like always, it's the people that you meet when you go over there. It's always the people. This is Mikonorio Gisu. I've talked to him on the phone plenty of times. I've never met him until now. Here he was telling us which ferns we should buy. He's an expert on Japanese and Chinese plants. And if you don't believe me, just ask him. He's fantastic. It was really great. Different nurserymen around there are growing plants that he collected in China, and these traditional plants and all these. If you find something amazing, it's probably his plant. And they're like 3 or 4 older nurserymen who are taking care of them. And we've been trying to talk to them like, let us help you get these plants to the UK, to collection in the UK, to here, because it's thousands of plants, and they're scattered in these different greenhouses. And this gentleman, Mr. Yamaguchi, just passed away recently, right before we were there. So we went to visit his house and say a little prayer at his thing. Already much of that collection that had been Yamaguchi's, had been Mikanori's, is gone from there. He did still have this Akuba, which has been on my lust list. We did get a couple pieces back. We're told it does not root, so it's being grafted, and we'll see. But people like this woman who had a nursery. She specialized in hepaticas. There's hepaticas, that big thing. But after shopping, she gave us this. She gave us all a little plate with hepaticas on there. How nice is that? Another place we went, little tiny mom and pop that we just saw. We weren't even planning to go there. We just stopped. After buying some plants there and chatting with them, we were admiring some woodcuts that they had up on there. And they pull out some small reproductions of those same woodcuts and give them to all of us, and they're just always great. And I did learn you always trust those people, because I was saying, well, which hepatica should I get? And I wasn't getting one of the crazy variegated ones because my pockets are not bottomless. And she kind of picks up just a green leaf one and says, "Yeah, this will be good," and hands it to me. And I'm like, I really wanted one. I could have for the same price gotten one with nicely patterned leaves, but what do you do at that point when she hands you the one? Take it home and it flowered. Always trust the experts. You know? With a little age, everybody gets happier or grouchier. I don't know which. I learned that sometimes you just have no idea what's going on. Don't know what that store is, don't know what it's for, but don't know if it's pro or con. But hey, whatever. I learned they don't have, tort law is different in Japan than it is in the US. Can you imagine that in a public garden here that's just open for anybody to go across? And that was a wide bridge compared to some of them. I did found what I want for my next desk. This was somebody's desk that we went to. It was a huge terrarium full of begonias. That'd be nice. Be a pain to keep it clean, but. And like I said, always listen to the experts. Because bears are a thing in Japan and they kill people.
Respect the bear.
Respect the bear. First half of 2025, they had 55 attacks. All right. So I was asked about this a couple times beforehand. This is the first. At 1:15, I let staff know where we're going and what the dates are. So this is our next trip. Alpine wildflowers. This is a bucket list for me. I was hesitant. These bucket lists for me. I'm like, do I really want to do it with a whole group? But no. I'm joking. I love the traveling. So all the details are not set, but all the hotels have been secured. That's the hard part with this. And we are going to some really, really amazing places. It is unfortunately going to be a relatively small group that can go because of sizes of buses and accommodations and things like that. So Elizabeth and I are working on a way to make it as equitable as possible. She has experience with doing that with summer camps since she has broken the North Carolina State University registration system before because so many people were trying to register for summer camps at the same time. So she's gotten good at making this so that it is more equitable for everybody. So June 16th through the 25th should be a fantastic trip. That's when kind of mid to late when the snows are melting back and all these spring wildflowers are popping up. So it's gonna be fantastic. And for all the people who wondered why I won't tell you earlier, because a month ago I thought we were going to go to the Alps in Slovakia and that didn't work out. So that's why I wait until we've got it nailed down. So Swiss Alps. So thank y'all all for being here. Let me talk about what I did on my summer vacation. Try not to go too long. I was taking 2 talks and putting them into one, so I think I did a pretty good job. I brought a couple of plants just up from the nursery that we got in Japan that if anybody's interested, I can tell you about them. To Greg and Tim and everybody's dismay, I brought some vines back because I love vines. But Greg, this is a variegated Burchemia, so it won't be nearly as vigorous as that one that you all had to fight out of the Lath House to get out. Thank y'all all for coming. I forgot about questions. You didn't type it in the chat, so I completely forgot that we answer some questions sometimes. There are different reasons for variegation. It's often genetic mutation. So when one thing's mutated, it can, change the growth. The distortion is usually, not always, because the cells are expanding at different rates or different amounts. So you got the leaf that comes out and the white or yellow does not expand like the green right next to it. So it twists the leaf a little bit. So that's usually why they're distorted when they're like that. But sometimes that's just, one gene turns off and it affects three things. And see, that's my real technical answer. There is think it's a bacteria. Think it's a fungus, something, paniculate or something like that affects hydrangea paniculata. As far as I know, it doesn't affect other hydrangea, but because it does affect hydrangea, it's banned because it is a problem, and it is in Japan. There's some countries you can bring in hydrangeas from a little bit easier, but it all depends. Something like you can't bring anything in the citrus family. Rutaceae family, absolutely cannot bring in because that orange lobby is real strong. I won't let you. Any other questions? Yeah. Does anybody watch Ted Lasso?
Yeah.
That is Ted Lasso shortbread. You would not believe what it takes to go into making that stuff.
Wow.
Ted Lasso is not making a batch every night. Not if he's sitting in that bar drinking, let me tell you.